Welcome back to the Tech Coach Corner YouTube series presented by Dyknow. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined by Jorge Valenzuela, who's an education coach, author, and advocate, and we're talking about how he helps schools integrate PBL, STEM, and computer science to create cohesive lesson plans and curriculum in his role. So great conversation. Before we jump in, I want to remind everyone to please subscribe to the Dyknow's YouTube channel, as well as check out our Progressive Learning Conference session recordings. They just hit the YouTube channel, and so you can watch all of those now live on our Progressive Learning Conference playlist. So go check those out. They're great sessions. George did a session on day 5 of the conference, which was great, on PBL, SEL, and equity. Don't want you to miss out on that. And before we jump in, just a reminder to follow us on all of our social media. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, and now we are on Pinterest. So go check it out. We have some great resources. And I think that's all I have today. So let's jump into the episode. Welcome back to Tech Coach Corner, everyone. I'm Tiara Lustig, your host, and today I'm joined by Jorge Valenzuela. George, would you mind giving a brief introduction to yourself before we get started?
Sure. Brief, right? Okay. So I'm an education coach, author, and advocate. I'm based in Virginia, but I'm all over the country and now even internationally through remote learning.
Remote learning has really opened up the gates to a lot of opportunities to get all over the world. George, we recently had you on our Tackling Tech podcast, and you did a breakout session for our Progressive Learning Conference this past week. So I would love to know a little bit more just about you and your role. You do a ton of work with computer science, with PBL. You have your book, Rev Up Robotics. You're in a lot of different areas. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what you do specifically at your company and in your role as a coach, and maybe how you bridge all of these areas of expertise together to really help schools maximize ed tech and curriculum in their districts?
I got you. So those are very heavy lifts, but I'm going to try to articulate that, in a way that is, broken down. So I am an instructional coach. Okay. And so what that means is that I help educators with their curriculum, which is planning it, and also with how they facilitate it. Okay. If an educator wants to really be good, these are the two areas that they need to focus on their pedagogical strategies, how they plan and how they teach. And so that's where PBL fits in. It's an instructional approach. It's a way to teach. And so I can help an educator that is not doing PBL, but PBL, we have found that it's really one of the best ways to make learning real world and meaningful for students and for schools, I think. All right, so that's one thing. Now, my undergrad is in computer science. So as a young man, many moons ago, 20 years ago, I'd say, I learned about programming and coding and algorithms and data structures and things like that. And so that is what I'm licensed to teach. I also have an add-on endorsement in STEM. I went to Columbia University, and I did the add-on NASA STEM Endeavor certificate. And so because of that, I'm able to help schools that have computer science and STEM as an initiative by helping them align that or integrate that into either PBL or their instructional designs. And so the same thing goes with equity and SEL. I was able to learn those because they are part of our PBL workshop through PBL Works. And so I had some training on those things. And then I also, did my own learning so that I can improve, not just as a teacher, but as a parent and as a friend, as a son, all of these things. And so I learned a lot more about that. And it just so happened that right now, that's a lot of the focus in schools, because we have a situation because of the pandemic and also with, race in America, where there are certain inequities that we can't ignore anymore. And so that has caused for that to really be a more focal point of my work, whereas before it would just be embedded into the workshop. Now it seems like that's what the workshop is about.
Definitely. I think that's a great kind of overview of what your role is and your background and all of that. Can you talk a little bit to maybe how that has shifted or changed with remote learning? You touched on equity and SEL, but maybe how has the focus on STEM or ed tech and that increased your focus in PBL and helping schools integrate technology in this time of remote learning?
All right, so let's start with ed tech. So ed tech has become more of a focal point in the sense that now there's no way around it. Schools would, offer like a clearinghouse of ed tech tools and apps that they would have on their website, and then they would have a PD, and then the teachers would either use it or not use it. Now there's no way around it, right? And so what my job has been is I focus primarily on engagement. So when I'm doing a workshop, right, it's very different from if I'm teaching an online course at my university, which I do that as well at ODU. It's different because these folks, they want to learn, but they also want to be engaged so they can replicate the use of those tools and the practices in the classroom. And so I had to learn new tools or even old tools in a different way. And for example, I never knew what Nearpod was. I heard of it, I've seen it, but I never knew how to use it in a lesson. Well, it worked really well because my participants were able or are able to engage with the platform. Also Zoom, I've always used Zoom or GoToMeeting and also Ring Central, but I didn't know how to use a breakout room. Well, I do a lot of strategies that focus on group work. And so I was able to take that tool and leverage it and use it in that way. There are other tools out there that educators can use. And so what I do is just focus on the ones I know and for my purposes, but there's other stuff out there. And so I know that there wasn't really a focus on STEM and on computer science when the pandemic initially happened. However, when we got into June and schools now had a plan or were beginning to formulate a plan for how they were going back, then they started to do more of that. And so I'd say since June, I've done, I want to say 6 computer science workshops. I just got off the phone and it looks like, I'm coding and all of that is coming back stronger than ever. I just spoke at the CSTA conference, which is the Computer Science Teachers Association, which is the national organization for all of computer science. And so, it's folks are figuring out how to do this remotely. And it's definitely making a comeback. PBL hasn't gone anywhere. It's my understanding that some data is about to come out that is going to show that remote PBL works and it works effectively. I've been doing workshops for PBL Works basically the entire summer. I want to say we've done like 8, and we have done the entire PBL workshop remotely. We're doing a new class. It's called Adapting Your First Project. And so I think that we are going to see a lot of PBL, a lot of computer science and STEM, and definitely ed tech is not going anywhere.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think ed tech is here to stay, and I think remote learning definitely proved that out. George, thank you so much for sharing that insight into your role as a coach, as well as kind of remote learning's effect on ed tech and computer science. Where can people find you if they want to engage with you and learn from you further?
Well, they can find me on Twitter and Instagram, and my handle is @GeorgeDoesPBL. That is JORGE. And on my company website, lifelonglearningdefined.com.
Perfect. We will share that in the description of the video so that everyone can engage with you. And we appreciate you being here with us today.
Thank you so much.